The message played on every council screen across 14 star systems simultaneously. Commander James Reeves stood motionless in the observation deck of the UNSC Prometheus, watching the broadcast repeat for the third time in as many minutes. "This is humanity's final warning," his own recorded voice echoed through the chamber. "You have 72 hours to release all human captives, withdraw from the Epsilon Corridor, and present yourselves for negotiation under neutral arbitration. Failure to comply will result in immediate military action. This is not a threat, this is a promise." The Galactic Council's response came 6 minutes later. Laughter. Actual laughter from the assembled delegates, their translated amusement crackling across subspace channels. Ambassador Thelquin of the Valorian Compact, a species that looked like living mercury poured into a vaguely humanoid shape, spoke directly to the broadcasting void. "The humans believe 72 hours is sufficient time to intimidate an empire spanning 200 worlds." How delightfully naive. James exhaled slowly, his reflection ghosting across the reinforced viewport. Behind him, Lieutenant Sarah Chen approached with a data tablet, her expression unreadable. "Sir, the Council just voted, 12-1 against compliance. They're calling it human hysteria on the public feeds. And the captives, still being held in labor facilities on Kreven Prime. Intel confirms 217 humans, mostly civilian miners and their families." She paused. "The Valorians are parading them on broadcasts, calling them guests of the Compact." James turned from the window. At 43, he'd spent 2 decades in fleet intelligence, reading patterns in data streams and enemy movements. This pattern was clear. The Council believed humanity was bluffing because humanity had always negotiated before, always found the diplomatic solution, always been the reasonable voice in galactic politics. They were about to learn the difference between patience and weakness. "Broadcast the countdown clock," he said quietly. "Public channel. Every language, make sure they can see it ticking down." Chen hesitated. "Sir, once we start this, we already started it the moment they took our people." He pulled up the tactical display, showing the 17 human warships now positioned at key junction points throughout Council space. "They think we're loud neighbors making noise. They're about to find out we're exterminators who have been asking them nicely to leave the house." Before you continue with this story from HFY, hit that like button and subscribe, because what happens next is going to redefine everything you thought you knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. Drop a comment right now telling us if you think the Council made the right call, because in 69 hours and 14 minutes, that choice is going to cost them everything. Chen pulled up the alien counterpart file on her tablet. "We also have an unexpected development. One of their tactical analysts requested direct communication." Separately from the Council. Name: Analyst Keelan. She's Zorathian, 3rd-tier Council member species. Her species does sensory analysis through bioluminescent pattern recognition. Apparently she's been studying our fleet movements and wants to speak with you specifically. James studied the bioprofile. Zorathians were 4-armed, with compound eyes that could see across multiple spectrums simultaneously. Their skin changed color based on emotional states and tactical assessments. They were brutally honest because lying created false color patterns they couldn't control. "She wants to talk. Now, requesting secure channel in 20 minutes. The countdown clock appeared on every screen in Council space. 69 hours, 17 minutes, 32 seconds. And somewhere in those seconds, James wondered if even one alien would understand what they were actually counting down to. The answer came faster than expected. Keelan's communication request pinged through precisely on schedule, but the message header contained something that made Chen's hand freeze over the accept button. It was flagged urgent and contained 2 words in standard English. "They're lying." The holographic projection materialized in the secure comm room. And James got his first look at Analyst Keelan of the Zorathian Oversight Committee. She stood roughly 6 feet tall, her 4 arms moving in constant, precise gestures as she spoke. Her skin rippled with bands of deep blue and sharp amber, colors that, according to the cultural database, indicated extreme stress and analytical certainty. "Commander Reeves," her voice came through the translator crisp and direct. I have approximately 4 minutes before my superiors notice this unauthorized communication. I will be efficient. I appreciate efficiency, James said, leaning forward in his chair. You said they're lying. About what? Everything. Her compound eyes refracted the light in unsettling patterns. The Council's public position is that your warning is an overreaction to a labor dispute. The private position, discussed in closed session 17 hours ago, is significantly different. She transmitted a data packet, heavily encrypted, requiring Chen 3 full minutes to crack it open. When the content scrolled across James's display, his jaw tightened. Internal Council communications, strategic assessments, and a classified order issued by the Valorian Compact's military command. The human captives weren't miners caught in a dispute, they were bait. The Compact wanted a war, Keelan continued, her skin flashing crimson. Now anger, the database confirmed. Your species has been too successful at arbitration, too effective at building independent trade networks. You've cost the Council significant influence in the outer territories. The Valorians convinced the majority that provoking a limited conflict would allow them to force humanity into a subordinate treaty position. James read through the orders. The captives were to be held until humans attempted a rescue operation, at which point Valorian defense platforms would destroy the rescue fleet and broadcast the defeat across every system. Public humiliation, political leverage, a permanent seat at the table, but only at the children's end. They believe, Keelan said quietly, that you have 17 warships and limited tactical reach. They believe humanity will send a strike force that can be contained and eliminated. They have 96 capital ships in the region and control all the hyperspace junction points. And you're telling me this because? Her skin shifted to pale silver, what the database labeled as moral conviction, because I have studied your species for 6 years. Commander, I have analyzed your tactical doctrine, your historical conflicts, your negotiation patterns, and I have reached a conclusion that terrifies me, which is that your warning was not hyperbole. That you meant exactly what you said, that you have been showing restraint, not weakness. Her 4 hands clasped together in what might have been a pleading gesture. And if I am correct, then in 66 hours, the Galactic Council is going to learn why humanity became the dominant species on a death world where 98% of all species that ever lived went extinct. The silence stretched for 5 seconds. You're right to be terrified, James said softly. Because in 66 hours, we're going to show them why we survived when everything else on Earth didn't. Keelan's skin went pure white, shock, according to the database. How many ships do you actually have? James smiled, but there was no humor in it. 17 warships, that part was true. Then how? We don't need more ships, analyst. We need them to believe that's all we have. He pulled up a star chart showing the Epsilon corridor and surrounding systems. Your council thinks in terms of fleet superiority and territorial control. That's not how humans fight. We fight like Earth taught us. We adapt, we exploit every weakness, and we make the environment itself our weapon. Chen brought up a secondary display. Keelan, are you familiar with the concept of a kill box? The Zarathian's colors rippled through confused patterns. A tactical containment zone for eliminating trapped forces. Standard doctrine across most military powers. Right. Now imagine that instead of boxing in a single fleet. Chen expanded the display to show the entire Valorian defensive network. You box in an entire empire's military infrastructure simultaneously. Every junction point, every supply depot, every communication relay, all at once. Keelan's 4 arms went rigid. That would require positioning assets across 300 systems. Coordination on a scale that, she stopped, her skin flashing through rapid calculations. You've been positioning those assets for months while negotiating, while being the reasonable voice in council. 18 months, James confirmed. Every trade convoy, every diplomatic shuttle, every mining survey, we've been mapping, positioning, and preparing. Your council was so focused on the warships they could see, they never looked for the pieces they couldn't. The Zarathian analyst was completely white now. What are you? We're the species that killed everything on our planet that tried to kill us first. We're patient, we're thorough. And we gave them 72 hours because we wanted history to record that we tried. James stood, his reflection sharp in the holographic display. Tell me, analyst, in your professional opinion, what happens when a species that spent 200,000 years as persistence hunters decides to go to war? Keelan didn't answer. Her skin had gone darker than the database had colors for. James checked the countdown. 65 hours, 41 minutes. You should evacuate any system with significant civilian populations near Valorian military installations, he said. We're going to offer corridors and surrender terms, but people are going to panic. I'd rather not have refugees caught in the crossfire. You're offering surrender terms. Before you even fire a shot, we're not monsters, analyst. We're just done being polite. He gestured to Chen, who brought up a document, 30 pages of detailed terms, conditions, and safe passage protocols. This goes out in 6 hours, full broadcast. Every language. Anyone who wants out has 59 hours to take it. Keelan's colors finally settled on something the database identified as reluctant respect mixed with existential dread. I will relay this to civilian networks. Not officially, but I will ensure people know. She paused, her voice quieter. Commander, there are good people in Council space, people who had nothing to do with this decision. I know. That's why we're giving them 59 hours. James met her compound eyes directly. But the people who took our civilians, who turned this into a trap, who laughed at our warning, what about them? They get exactly what we promised, military action, immediate and total. The communication cut out. Chen exhaled slowly. Sir, you just told an enemy analyst our entire strategic framework. No, James corrected. I told someone who might be able to save lives that were serious. And I made sure that when the Council hears about this conversation, which they will in about 20 minutes, they'll have one more chance to think we're bluffing. He pulled up the fleet positions. Again, how many ships do we have in position around Kreven Prime? 3, the Achilles, the Spartan, and the Marathon. All stealth configured. And the civilian extraction team? Ground Team Alpha is on standby. Captain Marcus Webb commanding, 30 operators, full exfiltration gear. James nodded. Brief Webb personally. Tell him the timeline just accelerated. We're not waiting the full 72 hours. Sir, because the Council is going to call our bluff in about 12 hours. They're going to execute a handful of hostages on live broadcast to prove they're in control. He brought up intercepted communications, orders already being drafted in Valorian command. They think it'll break our resolve. Instead, it's going to be their last mistake. Chen stared at the orders. How did you? Because it's exactly what I'd expect from someone who thinks war is a political tool instead of a last resort. James checked the countdown again. Get Webb moving. I want our people out before the Council even realizes the shooting has started. The countdown hit 65 hours exactly as new alerts flooded the tactical display. Across Council space, human trade ships began changing course. Diplomatic shuttles requested priority docking. Survey vessels activated emergency beacons. It looked like panic. Like humanity scrambling to pull its people back before the deadline hit. But James watched the pattern and saw something else entirely. Every ship, every course change, every beacon, they were moving into position. The Galactic Council was about to learn the difference between retreat and repositioning. And in 65 hours, they were going to learn it the hard way. Captain Marcus Webb's combat boots touched Kreven Prime's surface exactly 63 hours into the countdown. The insertion had been textbook perfect. Drop pods disguised as meteorite debris, scattered across a 12-kilometer radius around the labor facility. 30 operators the best humanity had trained, all converging on one objective, get the captives out alive. Alpha Team, sound off, Webb whispered into his helmet comm. 30 confirmations came back in 5 seconds. Good. They were ghosts now, moving through the alien settlement under cover of the moons setting behind Kreven's planetary rings. The facility wasn't heavily guarded. Why would it be? The Valorian Compact controlled the entire system, had 96 capital ships within a 3-hour jump, and believed humanity's fleet was positioned defensively around Earth and the inner colonies. They'd made the captives visible on purpose, bait sitting in a trap that humanity was supposed to spring stupidly. Webb studied the compound through his helmet's enhanced optics. 217 humans in a converted mining barracks. Guards posted at predictable intervals. Sensor arrays focused outward, watching for incoming ships, not ground threats. Overwatch confirm orbital status, Webb subvocalized. 3 Council patrol ships in high orbit. Lieutenant Chen's voice came through from the Prometheus, still 14 light hours away. None of them are scanning ground level. You're clear for approach. Webb signaled his team forward. They moved like water flowing around obstacles, using the terrain and darkness as allies. Earth had taught them this: how to hunt, how to track, how to become predators when necessary. The first guard never saw them. One moment he was checking his scanner, bored with overnight watch duty. The next he was unconscious, zip-tied, and hidden behind a storage container. Non-lethal. Webb's orders were clear: minimum casualties until the shooting actually started. Give them every chance to walk away. They infiltrated the compound in 4 minutes. Webb reached the barracks door and pressed his hand against the lock. Human-designed, ironically, purchased from a Earth tech company 6 years ago. The bypass code worked instantly. Inside, 217 faces turned toward him, exhausted, terrified, but alive. United Nations Space Command, Webb said quietly, pulling off his helmet so they could see his face. We're taking you home. Stay quiet, stay close, and do exactly what my people tell you. We've got 40 minutes before the next guard rotation. A woman in the front, couldn't have been more than 25, started crying. They said nobody was coming. They said Earth had abandoned us. Earth doesn't abandon its people, ma'am. We just take our time getting it right. He signaled his team. Alpha 2, 3, start the evac. 4, 5, secure the perimeter. 6, I need that sensor grid down in 90 seconds. They moved, practiced, efficient, no wasted motion. The extraction took 38 minutes. 217 civilians, guided in small groups through the compound, into waiting transport pods disguised as waste containers. The pods would launch in 80 seconds, programmed to look like routine trash disposal headed for the system's edge. Webb was shepherding the last group when the alert came through his helmet. Alpha Lead, we have a problem. Chen's voice, tight with controlled urgency. Council broadcast just went live. You need to see this. The video feed patched into Webb's helmet display, and his blood went cold. Ambassador Thelquin stood in the council chambers, his mercury-like form gleaming under harsh lights. Behind him, displayed on massive screens, were live feeds from Kreven Prime, but not the facility Webb had just evacuated. Different locations, other facilities. Humanity believes it can threaten the Galactic Council. Thelquin's translated voice dripped contempt. Let me show you what happens to those who mistake our patience for weakness. The feeds shifted. Webb saw humans, civilians, families, children being pulled from cells in 3 different locations across Council space. Not Kreven Prime, not the people he'd just saved. There were more captives. Hidden facilities, backup bait. In response to humanity's aggressive deadline, Thelquin continued, the Council has decided to demonstrate resolve. 10 human captives will be executed in 12 hours. Then 10 more every 12 hours until humanity withdraws its warships and accepts subordinate treaty status. Webb felt his operators freeze around him. Through his helmet feed, he could see their biometrics, heart rate spiking, breathing shallow. The rage was instantaneous and volcanic. Stand down, Webb ordered, his voice cutting through the channel like steel. Eyes on mission, we save who we can save. Alpha 6, are those pods ready? Launching in 30 seconds, sir. Do it. Chen, tell Commander Reeves we have confirmation on the extraction. 217 souls headed home. Copy that, Alpha Lead. Commander says, she paused. He says to get your team back to the marathon immediately. The timeline's changing. Webb watched the civilian pods launch, disguised as garbage heading for incineration in the star's corona. They'd burn their way through atmosphere, deploy solar sails, and be picked up by stealth ships in 18 hours. Safe. Home. But somewhere in Council space, 300 more humans had just been condemned to death. Alpha Team, exfil now, double time. Webb took one last look at the empty barracks. They'd saved 217, but the war had just started. The feed from the Council chambers continued. Thelquin was still talking, still posturing, still believing he held all the cards. Webb pulled up his own countdown timer. 61 hours, 42 minutes. Chen, relay to Commander Reeves, mission successful, but the game just changed. Request permission to remain in system for follow-up operations. Stand by, Alpha Lead. 15 seconds of silence. Then Chen's voice came back, and Webb could hear the edge in it, something cold and final. Commander Reeves says negative on staying in system. He wants you back on the marathon for the main event. Exact quote, "We're not playing their game anymore. In 61 hours, we're going to show them what happens when you make war on humanity." Webb's team earned the right to see it firsthand. Webb felt a chill run down his spine, not fear, anticipation. "Copy that, Alpha Team, we're going home, but keep your gear ready." This is just the opening act. They moved through the darkness, leaving the facility exactly as they'd found it, except empty. The guards wouldn't notice for another 40 minutes. By then, Alpha Team would be aboard the Marathon, breaking orbit, and gone. But as Webb climbed into his extraction pod, he pulled up the live feed from the Council one more time. Watched Thelquin gloat, watched the assembled delegates nod in agreement, watched them seal their fate with bureaucratic certainty. In 61 hours, every one of those smug faces was going to understand what they'd done. Webb smiled in the darkness of his pod. It wasn't a kind smile. "Launch," he ordered. The pod kicked him into space, and Kreven Prime fell away below. But 3 emergency beacons lit up on his display, coded signals from deep inside the 3 facilities Thelquin had just broadcast. Human signals, someone was still there, still alive, still fighting. Webb's hand moved to his comm before he could stop it. "Chen, those facilities Thelquin showed, do we have any assets in position?" The pause was longer this time. "Alpha Lead. Commander Reeves says you're not the only team in play. Those beacons. They're not distress calls. They're target designators." Webb's pod continued accelerating away from Kreven Prime, but his eyes stayed locked on those 3 beacons, pulsing in the darkness. Target designators meant someone was painting those facilities for strike packages, which meant other teams were already on the ground, already in position, already waiting. Chen. How long has Commander Reeves been planning this? 18 months, Captain. Every contingency, every scenario, every nightmare the Council could throw at us. Her voice softened slightly. He knew they'd have backup facilities, knew they'd try to escalate, built the plan around it. The countdown ticked over. 61 hours, 27 minutes. Somewhere in Council space, the Galactic Council was celebrating their tactical brilliance, holding more hostages, forcing humanity into an impossible choice, demonstrating their control. But Webb understood what Commander Reeves had built, understood the pattern. The Council wasn't controlling anything. They were following a script that humanity had written 18 months ago, performing their parts perfectly, walking step by step into a trap so massive they couldn't even see its edges. And in 61 hours, that trap was going to close. Webb's pod matched velocity with the Marathon docking clamps engaging with a solid thunk. As the airlock cycled open, he heard the ship's combat systems humming to life. Weapons charging, drives warming up, the smell of recycled air and mechanical precision. Captain Sarah Durant met him at the airlock, her expression carved from stone. "Welcome back, Marcus. Commander Reeves wants all team leads on priority channel in 10 minutes. We've got new orders." She handed him a data slate. "These just came through from Fleet Intelligence." Webb scanned the document, target packages, strike coordinates, extraction timelines. And at the bottom, a single line in Commander Reeves's handwriting. "No more warnings, no more waiting. At T-minus 60 hours, we show them what humanity really is." Webb looked up at Durant. "We're not waiting for the deadline? Negative, we're starting early. Because the Council is about to execute our people, and Commander Reeves just decided that their timeline ends the moment they pull that trigger." She gestured toward the combat deck. "He's addressing the fleet in 5 minutes. You're going to want to hear this." Webb followed her through the corridors, past crew members moving with purposeful intensity. Everyone knew. Everyone felt it, the weight of what was coming. They reached the observation deck, just as Commander Reeves's face appeared on every display throughout the human fleet. 17 warships, scattered across Council space. All watching the same broadcast. James stood in the Prometheus's command center, the countdown clock visible behind him. 61 hours, 14 minutes. "To all personnel across the United Nations Space Command Fleet," he began, his voice calm and absolutely certain. The Galactic Council has just announced they will execute 10 of our people in 12 hours. They believe this demonstration will force our surrender." He paused, letting that sink in. "They're wrong because we're not surrendering, we're not negotiating, we're not waiting." His eyes hardened. "At T-minus 60 hours, 1 hour and 14 minutes from now, we commence Operation Reckoning. Every asset, every team, every contingency we've positioned over the last 18 months goes active simultaneously." Webb felt the ship shift around him, engines building power. "Our objectives are clear," Reeves continued. "Extract every human captive, neutralize Council military infrastructure, demonstrate that humanity's patience was a choice, not a limitation, and ensure that no species in this galaxy ever mistakes our diplomacy for weakness again." The displays shifted, showing tactical overlays of Council space, hundreds of targets, thousands of coordinates, all highlighted in red. "We gave them 72 hours because we wanted to be lawful. They responded by threatening to kill our people every 12 hours until we submit." James leaned forward, and the cold fury in his voice made Webb's spine straighten. "So let me be clear. The moment they execute the first human, every deadline ends, every mercy evaporates. And we show them exactly why Earth didn't produce a galactic council. We produced survivors who don't lose." The fleet channel exploded with acknowledgements. 17 ships, thousands of crew members, all saying the same thing. "Ready." 1 hour, Reeves said quietly. "Then we remind the galaxy why predators don't hunt humans. We hunt them." Reeves out. The transmission ended. The countdown hit 61 hours, 12 minutes, and throughout Council space, hidden human assets began their final preparations, waiting for the signal that would change everything. Webb looked at Durant. "We're really doing this?" "Yeah," she said. "We really are. The Council wanted a war to put humanity in its place." She smiled, sharp and predatory. "They're about to get a war that defines humanity's place, right at the top of the food chain." The Marathon's weapons systems came online with a sound like controlled thunder. 61 hours. 10 minutes. The Council had 12 hours before their executions, but humanity's patience had just run out, and someone in the Council chambers was about to have a very bad day. Analyst Keelan's skin flashed warning colors so rapidly that 3 of her subordinates actually backed away from her workstation. She just intercepted a fragment of human fleet communications, heavily encrypted, but enough leaked through subspace interference to reconstruct the critical pieces. "No," she whispered, her 4 hands flying across multiple input surfaces simultaneously. "No, they cannot be." "Analyst," her supervisor, a Valorian officer named Commander Talrex, approached with the casual arrogance of someone who believed he controlled the situation. "You seem distressed. Is there a problem with the human fleet positions?" Keelan's skin went pure black terror, the deepest terror her species could express. "Commander, we need to evacuate all Council military installations immediately. We have less than 1 hour before." "Before what?" "Before the 17 human warships try to engage our 96 capital ships. Let them come. We've prepared for exactly this scenario." "You prepared for a conventional engagement?" Keelan pulled up her analysis, data streaming across holographic displays faster than Talrex could follow. "Look at these intercepts. Look at the pattern. They're not positioning for a fleet battle. They're positioning for—" She stopped, her translator struggling to find a Valorian word for what she was seeing. "They're positioning for extermination." Talrex waved a dismissive appendage. "One species cannot exterminate an empire of 200 worlds. The mathematics don't support it." "The mathematics support exactly that if you properly account for." Keelan brought up historical data from Earth. "Commander, do you know what a persistence hunt is?" "I don't have time for anthropological. It's how humans hunted prey on their home world. They didn't run faster. They didn't have claws or venom. They just followed, for hours, for days, until their prey collapsed from exhaustion and then they killed it." Her skin rippled through frustrated patterns. "We've been focused on their warships, but warships aren't the weapon. Time is the weapon. Patience is the weapon. Inevitability is the weapon." Talrex stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "Analyst, report to medical. You're clearly experiencing stress-induced dysfunction." Keelan watched him walk away, her colors settling into resigned certainty. She'd tried, given them every chance. But the Council's arrogance was biological. They'd spent 3,000 years as the dominant power and couldn't conceive of a universe where they weren't. She pulled up a private communication channel, routed through 6 different relays, encrypted with algorithms that would take the Council's systems weeks to crack. Commander Reeves answered on the second ping. "Analyst Keelan, I wondered if I'd hear from you again." "I attempted to warn them," she said simply, her skin showing honest defeat. "They will not listen. Talrex believes you are bluffing. The Council believes the same." "I appreciate you trying." James sat in his command chair, the countdown visible behind him. 59 minutes, 43 seconds. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're caught in this." "Where should I evacuate to?" The question was direct, practical. "Which systems will be safe?" James brought up a star map, highlighting 14 systems in green. "These are civilian-heavy zones with minimal military infrastructure. We'll offer evacuation corridors. Anyone who wants out has," he checked the countdown. 59 minutes to start moving. "You are still offering mercy. Even after they threaten to execute your people. We're offering practical reality. Civilian casualties don't serve our objectives, but military assets." His expression hardened. "Every Council warship, every command station, every weapons platform that doesn't stand down in the next hour becomes a legitimate target. And we will eliminate them with extreme efficiency." Keelan's skin rippled with the colors of someone watching a natural disaster unfold. "How many assets do you actually have in position, Commander?" "The Council counts 17 warships. The Council is counting the assets we wanted them to see." James smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "You want the real number." "We have 17 warships, 240 automated defense platforms, 678 armed merchant vessels, 32,000 remote weapon systems, and 116 special operations teams on the ground across Council space. We've been positioning them for 18 months while negotiating trade deals and mining rights." The Zarathian analyst went completely white, shock so profound her translator almost crashed. That's a fleet capacity larger than most sector governments. That's what happens when a species spends 200,000 years learning to prepare for the worst." James leaned forward. "We don't fight fair, analyst. We fight to win. And we've been preparing to win this war since the moment the Council started testing our boundaries 3 years ago. 3 years. But the hostage situation only started 6 months ago. I know. The hostages were the trigger, not the cause. The cause was the Council believing humanity could be intimidated, manipulated, or controlled." He pulled up tactical displays showing Council space. "We're about to correct that misconception permanently." Keelan processed this, her analytical mind racing through implications. "The evacuation corridors you are offering, they are also intelligence-gathering operations." "Yes, we'll monitor who leaves, where they go, and what assets they consider valuable enough to move. It'll help us refine targeting for the second wave." "Second wave?" Her colors flashed panic. "How many waves are there?" "As many as necessary until the Council surrenders or ceases to exist as a functional military power." James checked his display. 56 minutes. "You should start moving if you're going to reach safe zones before this starts." I need to ask you something, Commander." Keelan's skin settled into the silver of moral conviction. "When this is over, what happens to the Council, to the species who followed bad leadership? Depends on them. If they surrender, we negotiate fair terms. If they fight, we remove their ability to threaten anyone. If they commit war crimes," his voice went cold, "we document everything and turn it over to neutral arbitration. We're not conquerors. We're just done being the galaxy's punching bag. And if the Council chooses mutual destruction, if they decide to take humanity with them..." James was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Then they'll learn that Earth produced one species that survived every mass extinction, every predator, every environmental catastrophe their planet could throw at them. We've been extinct before, analyst. Multiple times, technically, we just kept coming back. Can the Council say the same?" Keelan felt something shift in her understanding of humanity. They weren't warriors, they were survivors, and there was a vast, terrible difference between the two. "I will evacuate to the Helios system," she said quietly. "And I will send warnings to every civilian network I can access. Many will not listen, but some will. That's all anyone can do. Thank you, analyst. The connection terminated. Keelan sat in the darkness of her private workspace, watching the countdown tick down. 54 minutes, 27 seconds. She began composing messages, emergency broadcasts, civilian warnings, everything she could do to save people who didn't realize they needed saving. Around her, the Council military complex continued its normal operations. Guards at their posts. Officers planning the inevitable human surrender, warships in standard defensive positions. They had no idea, none of them did. Except possibly Ambassador Thelquin, who had just entered the operations center with an expression that even his Mercury-like features couldn't hide. Concern, maybe even fear. All stations, priority alert, Thelquin announced. We have reports of unusual activity in the Kepler Junction. Multiple human merchant vessels are changing course simultaneously. Merchant vessels? Talrex looked up from his console. Why should we care about unarmed traders? Because they're all changing course to specific coordinates, jump-capable coordinates. 16 vessels, all moving to positions that would allow rapid escape from Council territory. Keelan's skin went dark. She understood. The Council was seeing it backward. Those weren't escape positions. Those were attack positions. Ambassador, she said carefully, I recommend immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel from this facility. On what grounds? On the grounds that she checked her internal chronometer. 52 minutes and 14 seconds. This facility is going to be the primary target of a coordinated strike designed to decapitate Council military command in a single engagement. The room went silent. Thelquin's form shifted colors, uncertainty and calculation. You're certain? I have studied human tactical doctrine for 6 years. I have analyzed every conflict they've ever documented. And I am telling you with complete professional certainty, they are not bluffing, they are not posturing. They are counting down to your destruction, and you are standing precisely where they want you to stand. Then we increase defensive measures, Talrex interjected. Double the guard. Activate shield generators. Deploy the defense platforms. Commander, Keelan said quietly, what makes you think the defense platforms are still ours to control? The color drained from Talrex's features. That's not possible. Those platforms are biometrically locked, voice-activated, requiring Council authorization codes to... The primary display flickered, went dark. Came back online showing something that made every being in the operations center freeze. A human face. Commander James Reeves, broadcast on every Council military channel simultaneously. Good evening, Galactic Council. This is Commander James Reeves of the United Nations Space Command. The countdown has reached T-minus 50 minutes. I'm broadcasting this message to every military installation, every warship, every command center under Council control. He leaned forward, his expression absolutely calm. You have 50 minutes to begin evacuation of all military personnel to designated civilian zones. We are transmitting evacuation corridors now. Any ship that enters these corridors and powers down weapon systems will be allowed to proceed unharmed. Any ship that remains in combat positions after T-0 will be engaged and destroyed. Thelquin found his voice. This is absurd. You cannot possibly. We can, we have. And in 50 minutes we will. James pulled up a tactical display showing Council space. Red markers appeared, hundreds of them, thousands. Each one representing a human asset that the Council had never detected. Every defense platform you're looking at, we've had access to their control systems for 9 months. Every junction point you control, we have weapons positioned to deny them to you. Every supply depot, every communications relay, every strategic position you believe is secure. The markers on the display all turned green simultaneously. We're already there. We've been there. Waiting, preparing, giving you every possible chance to do this the diplomatic way. His voice hardened. You responded by taking hostages and threatening executions. So now we do this the military way, and I promise you, Council, you do not want to see what happens when humanity stops asking nicely. The transmission shifted. Live feeds from across Council space. Human teams in position, weapons armed, ready, not 17 warships, not a small strike force. An invasion fleet that had been hiding in plain sight for 18 months. 50 minutes, James repeated. Use them wisely, Reeves out. The display went dark. The operations center erupted into chaos, officers shouting, systems going haywire, alarms blaring. Keelan watched it all with the calm of someone who'd seen the math and knew exactly how this ended. She pulled up her personal evacuation plan, grabbed her data cores, and headed for the exit. Behind her, she heard Thelquin screaming orders, Talrex demanding defensive positions, and a dozen other officers trying to coordinate a response to a threat they still didn't understand. They thought it was a battle. They thought they could defend. They were wrong. It was an execution, and they'd had 72 hours to avoid it. Now they had 50 minutes to run. Keelan's ship launched from the docking bay 3 minutes later. As she cleared the facility's defense perimeter, she looked back one last time at the massive military complex that had been Council command for 6 generations. 47 minutes until it was nothing but debris. She turned her ship toward the Helios system and accelerated to maximum burn. Behind her, the Council scrambled, panicked. Tried desperately to find solutions to a problem that had no solution, because humanity hadn't brought a knife to a gunfight. They'd brought a knife to a knife fight, then quietly filled the room with explosives while everyone was arguing about proper technique. And the timer was running out. T-minus 30 seconds. Commander James Reeves stood on the bridge of the UNSC Prometheus, surrounded by tactical displays showing 327 targets across Council space. Every human asset, warships, platforms, teams, systems, all synchronized, all waiting. All stations report green, Lieutenant Chen announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Weapons free in 30 seconds. Confirmed. Fleet-wide broadcast on my mark. James pulled up the final warning transmission, pre-recorded, ready to play on every Council channel one last time. 3, 2, 1. Mark, his face appeared on every screen in Council space. This is Commander Reeves. You have 30 seconds to stand down all weapons systems and evacuate military personnel to designated safe zones. This is your final warning. At T-0, any military asset in combat readiness will be considered hostile and engaged. 25 seconds. On the tactical display, James watched the Council's response. Some ships were powering down, smart captains who'd seen the writing on the wall, but most remained in position, pride, orders, or sheer disbelief keeping them locked in place. 20 seconds. Ambassador Thelquin's voice cut across the emergency channel, his translated words sharp with desperation and anger. Commander Reeves, this is an act of war against 200 sovereign worlds. Stand down immediately or face. 15 seconds. I'd suggest you start evacuating, Ambassador. You cannot possibly coordinate strikes on this scale. This is a bluff. A desperate 10 seconds. The display showed Council ships beginning to scramble. Too late, too slow, still not understanding. 5 seconds. James felt the ship around him, felt the thousands of humans across the fleet, felt the weight of 18 months of preparation reaching its conclusion. This wasn't war. This was mathematics. This was the logical endpoint of every choice the Council had made. 0. The universe erupted. 327 targets engaged simultaneously. The defense platforms the Council relied on suddenly rotated inward, targeting their own installations. Human override codes, planted months ago during routine maintenance by human contractors, activated all at once. Valorian Command lost 40% of its defensive grid in the first 12 seconds. Direct hits confirmed on primary targets, Chen reported, her voice clinical. Enemy shields are, she paused, checking readings. Enemy shields are collapsing. They weren't at full power, because they didn't believe we'd actually do it, James said quietly. Continue engagement. Target packages 2 through 15, execute now. Across Council space, human strike teams activated, not with bombs or missiles, but with precision. Every communications relay linking Council military networks suddenly went dark, not destroyed, but hijacked. Human code sliding through systems like water through cracks, turning the Council's own infrastructure against them. Sir, we have incoming transmissions from Council fleet elements, Chen said. Multiple ships requesting terms of surrender. Route them to protocols. Anyone who stands down gets safe passage. Anyone who fights, an alert flashed on the tactical display. A council battle group, 12 ships strong, was accelerating toward the Prometheus's position. Not retreating, attacking. Hostile contact, Vector 270, Mark 15. Enemy battle group entering weapons range in 90 seconds. James studied the formation. Heavy cruisers, well-armed, probably commanded by someone whose pride outweighed their sense. Chen broadcast to that battle group, offer them one chance to stand down. Transmitting now. A pause. No response, sir. They're powering weapons. Then we respond in kind, weapons free. Target their engines first. Give their crews a chance to evacuate. The Prometheus's railgun batteries spoke with precise violence. Magnetically accelerated tungsten rods, traveling at relativistic speeds, punching through shields designed to stop energy weapons. The Council's technology was advanced. But physics didn't care about advancement. The first enemy cruiser lost main propulsion at 90 seconds, the second at 95. By 2 minutes, the entire battle group was drifting, disabled, their crews frantically launching escape pods. Cease fire. Transmit rescue coordinates to neutral systems. James watched the pods scatter. Next target package. But something was wrong. The tactical display was showing anomalies. Council ships that should have been disabled were still maneuvering. Not many. Maybe 15% of the total, but enough to complicate things. Chen analysis. Why are those vessels still combat capable? She pulled up the data, her expression darkening. They're running isolated systems, no network connections. They must have suspected the hack and gone dark before we activated. James nodded slowly. Smart. Some council commanders were actually competent. All right, update tactical doctrine. Isolated vessels get the full kinetic package. No more warning shots. Sir, those ships have crew complements in the thousands, and they had 50 minutes to evacuate. I'm not risking human lives because their captains chose pride over sense. Weapons free on isolated targets. Maximum efficiency. The Prometheus's main batteries recalibrated. The next salvo wasn't aimed at engines. It was aimed at reactors. 3 council destroyers ceased to exist in bright, brief flashes. Sir, we have an emergency transmission from the ground teams on Kreven Prime, Chen said, her voice tight. The execution facility, they're moving up the timeline. They're executing hostages now. James felt his blood go cold. How many? Unknown. The team is moving to intercept, but get me Captain Webb now. The connection established in 3 seconds. Webb's face appeared, the background showing chaos. Weapons fire, shouting, the distinctive crack of human firearms in atmosphere. Commander, we're at the facility now. They started executing people 5 minutes ago. We've breached the perimeter, but an explosion rocked the feed. Webb, still here, sir. We're fighting through, but they've got the hostages in a central chamber with heavy security. We need 10 minutes to. You don't have 10 minutes. Those people are dying now. James pulled up orbital assets. The marathon was in position, but a full strike would kill everyone in the facility. They needed precision. He looked at the tactical display, saw the pattern, saw the solution it was going to cost them. Webb, paint me a target, smallest possible signature. I'm bringing the Achilles in for close support. Sir, the Achilles is a capital ship. You can't. Watch me. Chen, get the Achilles into atmospheric entry. Target solution on Webb's coordinates. I want railgun support, surgical precision, danger close. Commander, atmospheric entry will compromise the Achilles' stealth coating. Every council ship in the system will know we have assets in close orbit. Let them know. Webb, you have incoming support in 4 minutes. Get those hostages clear of the blast zone. The Achilles, a destroyer-class vessel never designed for atmospheric operations, tilted its nose toward Kreven Prime and began the most reckless maneuver in human naval doctrine. Capital ships didn't enter atmosphere. The stress, the heat, the exposure, it was suicide, unless you were desperate enough and skilled enough to make it work. Captain Sarah Durant commanded the Achilles, and her voice came through calm and certain. Beginning atmospheric entry, structural integrity at 93%, 91, 88. We're reading high thermal stress on forward sections. Can you maintain? We're about to find out, approaching target coordinates. Webb, I need that paint now. On the ground, Webb's team was fighting through the facility's defenders, not killing them when possible, but moving with lethal efficiency when mercy would cost time. They reached the central chamber just as the facility commander raised a weapon toward the huddled hostages. Webb put 3 rounds center mass, dropped the commander, and activated his laser designator. The beam, invisible to most eyes, lanced upward through atmosphere and smoke, painting a target precisely 17 meters from the hostage position. "Paint confirmed," Durant's voice crackled through. "Firing now." The Achilles' railgun fired a single tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole. It entered atmosphere at 12 kilometers per second, turned red-hot, and punched through the facility's roof like it was paper. The explosion was surgical, precise, devastating. The facility's security station ceased to exist. The guards scattered, and Webb's team rushed forward, pulling 43 human hostages out of the rubble and chaos. "Hostages secure," Webb reported. "All accounted for, requesting immediate extraction. Extraction ships inbound, 2 minutes." James watched the Achilles struggle back toward orbital altitude, atmosphere tearing at its hull. Durant status: hull integrity at 62%. Engines operating at 73% efficiency. "We're not dead, sir, just really beat up. Get back to high orbit." "You earned it," the tactical display updated. 43 more lives saved. But across Council space, the battle was accelerating, more ships engaging, more facilities under assault. The war humanity had been preparing for, the war the Council had forced, was now fully underway. And then the display showed something that made Chen inhale sharply. "Sir, we have a problem." "A big one?" James looked at the new contacts appearing on the display. 37 additional Council warships jumping in from reserve posit.